The rain hammered against the windows like an unrelenting drumbeat, each drop echoing the chaos unfolding inside a small, run-down apartment in the heart of a forgotten suburb. Inside, the air was thick with tension, heavy with the scent of fear and spilled whiskey. 8-year-old Tommy Jenkins huddled in the corner of his cramped bedroom, his small frame shaking uncontrollably as tears blurred his vision. His wide blue eyes, usually sparkling with the innocence of childhood, were now shadowed by terror. He could hear the muffled shouts from the living room, his mother's pleas, cutting through the storm outside, followed by a sharp slap and a thud that made his stomach twist into knots. Tommy's heart pounded in his chest like a trapped bird, fluttering wildly as he clutched his mother's old flip phone. The screen cracked from years of rough handling. He didn't know what to do. He was just a kid. But he knew this time was different. This time, the anger in his stepfather's voice was laced with something darker, more violent. "Mommy, please wake up," Tommy whispered to himself, his voice barely audible over the roar of thunder. He had seen it all through the crack in his Dory's stepfather, Rick Harlan, a burly man with tattoos snaking up his arms and a perpetual scowl, grabbing his mother, Lisa Jenkins, by the wrist and twisting until she cried out in agony. The crack of bone had been sickening, like a branch snapping in the wind. Lisa had crumpled to the floor, her face pale, her arm hanging limp at an unnatural angle. Rick loomed over her, muttering curses under his breath reeking of alcohol as he paced back and forth, oblivious to the pain he'd caused. Tommy's mind raced. He remembered a number from a poster at school, one for emergencies, but his fingers fumbled on the keys in his panic. He typed it, wrong switched a digit here, missed one there, but he hit send anyway. The message was simple, desperate. "He hurt my mom bad. Broke her arm. Help us, please." As the phone buzzed with the sent confirmation, Tommy pressed his back against the wall, feeling the cold seep through his thin pajamas. The room spun around him. Posters of superheroes on the walls mocked his helplessness. He could smell the faint metallic temps of blood from the living room, mixed with the musty odor of damp carpet. Every creak of the floorboards made him flinch, wondering if Rick would come for him next. Miles away, in a dimly lit garage on the edge of town, where the hum of fluorescent lights competed with the distant rumble of thunder, a man named Harlan Hawk Vance wiped grease from his calloused hands. Hawk was a towering figure, his broad shoulders straining against a worn leather jacket adorned with the emblem of the iron. Eagles Bica Clubba, fierce bird in flight, symbolizing freedom and unyielding strength. His beard was flecked with gray, his eyes deep-set and piercing, carrying the weight of a life lived on the open road. Scars crisscrossed his knuckles, remnants of bar fights and hard falls, but beneath that rugged exterior beat a heart forged in the fires of his own painful past. Hawk had grown up in a home much like Tommy's his father, a raging storm of fists and fury. His mother, a silent victim who never escaped. No one had come to their rescue, and Hawk had sworn he'd never let that happen to another soul if he could help it. He was tinkering with his Harley, the chrome gleaming under the light, when his phone vibrated on the workbench. Expecting a text from one of his club brothers about a late-night ride, he glanced at the screen. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. "He hurt my mom bad. Broke her arm. Help us, please." Attached was a garbled address, pieced together from a child's frantic typing street name, misspelled, house number inverted. Hawk's breath caught in his throat. Memories flooded back unbidden. The nights he'd hidden under his bed, listening to his mother's sobs, praying for a savior that never arrived. His jaw clenched, muscles tightening as he reread the message. This wasn't spam. This was a cry for help from a terrified kid. Without hesitation, he thumbed a reply. "Hold on, kid, I'm come in." The words felt heavy, a vow etched in digital ink. He grabbed his helmet, the leather creaking as he strapped it on, and swung a leg over his bike. The engine roared to life, a guttural growl that drowned out the storm, vibrating through his bones like a call to action. Rain pelted his face as he peeled out of the garage, tires slicing through puddles, sending sprays of water into the night. The wind whipped at his jacket, but he leaned into it, his mind focused on one thing, getting there in time. Streetlights blurred into streaks as he navigated the slick roads, his heart racing faster than the bike. He didn't know the exact address, but the neighborhood was familiar on down blocks where dreams went to die. Places he'd ridden through on charity runs for his club. Back in the apartment, Tommy peeked through the door again, his small hands gripping the frame. Lisa lay on the faded rug, her breathing shallow, whimpers escaping her lips as she drifted in and out of consciousness. Tommy, run if he comes back, she managed to gasp, her voice weak and laced with pain. But Tommy couldn't leave her. Rick was in the kitchen now, rummaging through drawers, slamming them shut with explosive force. Damn woman, always causing trouble, he snarled, his words slurred. Tommy's phone buzzed a reply. Hold on, kid. I'm coming. Hope flickered in his chest like a fragile flame, warming him against the cold dread. Who was this stranger? Would they really come? He hid the phone under his pillow, ears straining for any sign of rescue. The clock ticked agonizingly slow, each second stretching into eternity. Outside, the storm intensified, lightning flashing like nature's own warning. Hawk pushed his bike harder, weaving through traffic, his mind painting vivid pictures of what he might find. He could almost hear the child's fear, feel the mother's agony. This was why he rode, not just for the freedom, but for moments like this, where he could be the hero his younger self had needed. As he turned onto what he hoped was the right street, his headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating rows of identical apartments. There a faint light in a window, a shadow moving quickly behind the curtains. He killed the engine, the sudden silence deafening, and approached the door. His boots squelching in the mud, rain dripped from his helmet as he raised a fist to knock 3 firm raps that echoed like thunder. Inside, Tommy's eyes widened at the sound. Was T's help, or more dungeon? Rick froze mid-rant, his bloodshot eyes narrowing. Who the hell is that? He growled, stomping toward the door. Tommy held his breath, the suspense thickening the air like fog. The door creaked open. If stories of unexpected heroes and unbreakable bonds inspire you, hit that subscribe button for Road Motorcycle Diaries and turn on notifications so you never miss a tale that restores your faith in humanity. The confrontation was about to begin, and little did anyone know, this wrong number would spark a chain of events that would forever change 3 lives. The door swung open with a violent jerk, and Rick Harlan filled the frame like a dark storm cloud ready to unleash lightning. His bloodshot eyes narrowed at the drenched figure standing on the porch. Rain poured off the brim of Hawk's helmet in steady rivulets, his leather jacket glistening black under the weak porch light. At 6'4" and built like forged steel, Hawk didn't flinch when Rick barked. Who the hell are you? Get off my property. Hawk removed his helmet slowly, deliberately, water cascading from his dark hair and beard. His voice came low and steady, carrying the calm authority of someone who had faced worse than a drunk bully. I'm here for the boy and his mother. Step aside. Rick left a harsh, ugly sound that died quickly when he saw the cold steel in Hawk's eyes. You got no business here. This is family stuff. Go back to whatever biker bar you crawled out of. Tommy, still crouched behind the half-open bedroom door, felt his heart slam against his ribs. He could see the stranger's boots black, heavy, planted firm on the wet concrete. He could hear his mother's faint, pained breathing from the living room floor. Everything inside him screamed to run to her, but fear glued him in place. Then he heard the stranger speak again, softer this time, directed past Rick into the house. Kid? Tommy? You still there? It's okay now. I'm the one you texted. Tommy's breath hitched. How did he know his name? He hadn't put it in the message. But the voice didn't sound angry, or Manit sounded. Safe, like the way his real dad used to talk before he left years ago. Slowly, trembling, Tommy stepped into the hallway, clutching the cracked phone like a shield. Rick spun around. You little brat. You called some freak to come here? He took one threatening step toward Tommy. That was all it took. Hawk moved faster than Rick could register. One large hand shot out, catching Rick's shoulder and slamming him back against the wall with controlled force, not enough to break anything, but enough to make the air whoosh out of Rick's lungs. Touch that boy again. Hawk said quietly. And you'll wish the police got to you first. Rick wheezed, suddenly sober enough to realize the size difference and the quiet menace behind the words. He stayed pinned, chest heaving. Hawk didn't waste another second on him. He crossed the small living room in 3 strides and dropped to one knee beside Lisa. Her face was ashen, sweat beading on her forehead despite the chill in the air. Her right arm lay twisted at a grotesque angle. The bone had clearly snapped. Hawk's expression softened instantly as rough features, gentling the way only someone who had once been helpless could understand. "Ma'am? Lisa, can you hear me?" he asked gently. Her eyelids fluttered. "Tommy! Get Tommy! He's right here!" "He's safe." Hawk glanced over his shoulder. "Come here, son. She needs to see you're okay." Tommy ran forward on shaky legs and dropped beside his mom, tears streaming freely now. "Mommy, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do." Lisa managed the faintest smile through the pain. "You did good, baby. You did so good." Hawk pulled out his phone and dialed 911, voice clipped and clear. "We need an ambulance at 1427 Maple Lane, apartment 3B. Adult female. Suspected broken arm, possible abuse, child on scene. Perpetrator is still here. I'm detaining him until you arrive." He gave the address with calm precision, then ended the call. Rick tried to edge toward the back door. Hawk didn't even look at him. "Move again and I'll make sure you crawl out of here. Sit." Rick Sahardin, the worn couch, hands raised in shaky surrender. Hawk turned his full attention back to Lisa and Tommy. He shrugged off his leather jacket and carefully draped it over Lisa's shivering body, tucking it around her like a blanket. The Iron Eagle's patch gleamed faintly in the dim lamplight. Then he reached into an inner pocket and pulled out a small, clean bandana. He folded it gently and placed it under her head as a makeshift pillow. "You're gonna be okay," he told her. "Helps. Come in. Just breathe slow." Tommy stared up at the stranger really, looked at him for the first time. The man was scary big, covered in rain and road dust, yet his hands were surprisingly gentle as he checked Lisa's pulse. Tommy's voice came out small and cracked. "Are you a superhero?" Hawk gave a quiet chuckle, the first sound of warmth since he'd arrived. "Nah, kid. Just a guy on a bike who got a message he couldn't ignore." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with every heartbeat. Red and blue lights soon flashed through the curtains, painting the walls in urgent pulses. Paramedics burst in moments later, efficient and calm. Hawk stepped back, but stayed close, one hand resting protectively on Tommy's shoulder as they worked on Lisa stabilizing her arm, starting on Cuarto, speaking in low, reassuring tones. When they loaded her onto the stretcher, Tommy clung to her good hand. "I'm coming too," he whispered fiercely. One of the paramedics looked at Hawk. "You family?" Hawk hesitated only a second. "Close enough tonight." They let him ride in the back of the ambulance, with Tommy sitting beside him on the bench seat, small hand gripping Hawk's much larger one. The rain lashed the windows as they sped toward the hospital, siren cutting through the storm. Inside the ambulance, the world felt strangely quiet only, the beeping monitors, Lisa's shallow breaths, and Tommy's soft sniffles. At the emergency room, doctors swarmed. X-rays confirmed a clean break of both radius and ulna. Surgery would be needed to set the bones properly. Police arrived shortly after. Tommy, wrapped in a scratchy hospital blanket, gave his statement in a tiny, trembling voice, while Hawk stood silently behind him, like a sentinel. Rick was taken into custody without resistance too shaken. Too outnumbered. Hours passed in the sterile waiting room. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Tommy eventually curled up on the hard plastic chair, head resting against Hawk's thigh, exhausted beyond tears. Hawk didn't move. He sat like a statue carved from loyalty, one hand resting lightly on the boy's back, the other holding a paper cup of terrible hospital coffee he never drank. Around 4 a.m., a tired-looking doctor approached. "She's out of surgery. Pins and plate in the arm. She'll need time and physical therapy. But she's stable. You can see her soon." Relief washed over Hawk so powerfully he had to close his eyes for a moment. Tommy stirred, blinking sleepily. "She's okay. She's gonna be just fine," Kid Hawk said, voice rough with emotion he rarely let show. When they were finally allowed into the recovery room, Lisa looked small and pale against the white sheets, but her eyes lit up when she saw them. "My boys," she whispered, reaching out with her good hand. Tommy climbed carefully onto the bed and buried his face in her shoulder. Hawk stood at the foot of the bed, suddenly feeling too big, too rough for such a fragile moment. Lisa looked straight at him. "I don't even know your name." "Harlan Vance. Most people call me Hawk." "Hawk," she swallowed. "Thank you for everything." He shifted uncomfortably. "Just glad I saw the message." Tommy lifted his head. He broke the bad man's power. "Mom, just by standing there." Lisa smiled weakly. "I believe it." As dawn crept through the hospital blinds, painting thin gold stripes across the floor, something unspoken settled between the three of them. A thread had been tied that night that started with a mistyped number and refused to break. But the real healing, the kind that reaches deeper than bones, was only just beginning. If this story of courage showing up exactly when it's needed is touching your heart, please subscribe to Road Motorcycle Diaries right now. Hit the bell so you never miss the next real-life story that proves kindness still rides strong in this world. Years later, the same rain that once battered the windows of a broken home now fell gently against the glass of a small, cheerful house on the quieter side of town. The storm had long passed, leaving behind clear skies, and the kind of peace that only comes after surviving the worst nights. Inside, the living room glowed with warm lamplight. A fresh coat of pale blue paint covered walls that once echoed with fear. On the mantel sat a framed photo. A little boy grinning ear to ear on the back of a gleaming harlot, arms wrapped tight around a bearded man in a leather jacket. Behind them stood a woman with a soft smile and a cast that had since been replaced by full strength and freedom. Tommy Jenkins, no, 12, tall for his age, with the same bright blue eye, sat cross-legged on the rug, homework spread out in front of him. Across from him, Hawk Vance lounged in an armchair that had become his spot over the years. The Iron Eagles patch still adorned his jacket, but these days it hung more often on the coat rack by the door than on his shoulders. He was reading aloud from a dogged copy of The Hobbit, his deep voice rumbling through the tale of Bilbo's unexpected journey. Tommy listened with rapt attention, chin resting on his hands, occasionally interrupting to ask questions about dragons or maps. In the kitchen, Lisa Jenkins hummed softly while stirring a pot of chileda, same recipe her own mother used to make on cold nights. Her right arm moved freely now, no trace of the old break, except for a faint scar she sometimes touched absent-mindedly when she was thinking. She glanced through the doorway at the two most important men in her life and felt her heart swell in a way that still surprised her after all this time. It had started with one desperate, mistyped text sent into the night. A wrong number that turned out to be the exact right one. That single message had pulled a stranger from the shadows and turned him into family. Hawk had never planned to stay. He'd told himself he'd just make sure they were safe, then ride off into the dawn like he always did. But Tommy had clung to him that first morning in the hospital, whispering, "Don't go yet, okay?" And Lisa's quiet thank you had carried so much more weight than words usually do. So he stayed one day, then 1 week, then 1 month. He fixed the leaky faucet. He taught Tommy how to change a tire. He sat with Lisa through physical therapy sessions, holding her good hand when the pain made her grit her teeth. The police had made sure Rick Harlan never came near them again. A restraining order, charges of assault and battery, a prison sentence that gave Lisa and Tommy breathing room to rebuild. Hawk never asked for credit. He simply showed up, day after day, until showing up became the most natural thing in the world. Over time, the house filled with new sounds. Tommy's laughter when Hawk taught him to ride a bicycle without training wheels. Lisa's voice singing off-key while cooking dinner. The low purr of Hawk's Harley pulling into the driveway after a long ride. The Iron Eagles club brothers started dropping by not to cause trouble, but to bring food, fix the fence, play catch with Tommy in the yard. They called him Little Eagle and ruffled his hair. For the first time, Tommy understood what it meant to have people who chose to stand between you and the darkness. One evening, about a year after that stormy night, Hawk had sat Lisa and Tommy down at the kitchen table. He looked unusually nervous, rubbing the back of his neck the way he did when emotions got too big for his chest. "I've been thinking," he started, voice rougher than usual. "I don't have much a bike, a garage, some road scars. But if you'll have me, I'd like to stick around. For good. Not just as the guy who answered a text. As family, if that's something you want. Tommy had launched himself across the table into Hawk's arms before Lisa could even speak. You're already family, the boy said fiercely. You just didn't have the papers yet. Lisa's eyes shimmered. She reached across and took Hawk's scarred hand in hers. We've been waiting for you to realize it, she said softly. Welcome home, Harlan. They never married in a big ceremony. Neither of them wanted the fuss. Instead, they stood together one quiet afternoon in the backyard, with Tommy between them, the three of them holding hands, while a local judge read simple vows. Tommy carried the rings in his pocket and cried happy tears when Hawk slipped one onto Lisa's finger. Afterward, the Iron Eagles threw the best backyard barbecue the neighborhood had ever seen. Laughter, music, and the smell of grilled burgers drifted into the night. Now, years later, as Hawk finished reading the chapter and closed the book, Tommy looked up at him with serious eyes. Do you ever think about that night? The boy asked. The night you got my message. Hawk leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Every damn day, kid. Not because it was scary, because it was the night everything changed. For all of us. Lisa walked in, carrying 3 steaming mugs of hot chocolate topped with marshmallows. She handed one to each of them and settled on the arm of Hawk's chair. Sometimes I still can't believe a wrong number brought you here, she said, resting her head against his shoulder. Hawk wrapped an arm around her waist. Wasn't the wrong number, he murmured. It was the right one all along. Just took a little storm to deliver it. Tommy grinned. Best wrong number in history. Outside, the rain had stopped. Stars glittered above the quiet street. The Harley sat in the driveway under a tarp, waiting for the next sunny day when Hawk would take Tommy for a slow ride, just the two of them, wind in their hair, no destination in mind except being together. The little boy, who once hid behind a door clutching a cracked phone, had grown into a confident kid who knew what safety felt like. The mother who once lay broken on the floor now walked tall, her arms strong enough to hug her family tight. And the biker who once rode alone through every storm now rode with 2 hearts riding pillion one, small and fearless, one steady and full of grace. One text, one reply, one life changed forever. Because sometimes the universe doesn't send angels with wings. Sometimes it sends a man on a motorcycle who simply says, I'm on my way. If this journey from despair to family restored a little faith in your heart tonight, please give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment, and tell us, what would you have done if that message landed on your phone? And most importantly, hit subscribe to Road Motorcycle Diaries and join our growing family of people who believe kindness still roars louder than any engine. We'll keep bringing you these real stories that remind us, hope is always just one ride away. Thank you for watching. Ride safe, love hard, and never ignore a call for help.